So, welcome to my presentation today. My name is Tom Gallagher. I'm a professor from the University of Montana. I'd like to welcome you all. And I'd also like to thank the Foundation for IT Sustainability for giving me the opportunity to share my experiences with you today. Um, my role at the University of Montana, I direct our IT degree program, and we offer a 2-year degree program in information technology. We have 2 tracks with that. One track is for folks that are interested in pursuing careers as network administrators, very common job title out in the marketplace today. And the other emphasis is one where a student might be interested in software development. Today I want to discuss sustainability and what we've done to implement in our curriculum. And my role too, it's important to state here that I'm not a researcher, but I'm a teacher. So I work with students and I try to do the knowledge transfer where I give good ideas, I hope, and pass them on to our students. So my experience with sustainability, I was kind of recollecting how to open this up, and I think it goes back to probably the 1980s. In our particular region of the country, we're in the Rocky Mountains, the northwest portion of the states, and we have an edict for fly fishing, where right now in our area everybody releases the trout. And it comes out of a result of the 1980s when we start to see, due to increased pressure, more demands, drop in trout populations in all our rivers. Because at the time we'd kill the fish, we'd catch some fish, we'd take them home, we'd eat them. Well, that was not, the pressure got to be too much where it was not a sustainable resource anymore, so that nobody else could share the fish, so to speak. So what we've done now, and it's been totally a voluntary effort, where we have a catch and release fishery. And we kind of pride ourselves on that if a person's a fly fisherman, that the right thing to do when they're done catching a fish is turn them loose so the resource remains. All right, somebody else might have the opportunity to catch that fish, or they can go on and propagate the population. So I'll point my sustainability efforts back to, well, something that I love to do. So let me give you a brief overview here of what I'm going to talk about today. I want to talk a little bit about our local community of Missoula, Montana, and some of the sustainability issues that are taking place, the efforts we have going at the University of Montana. And then I'll also talk primarily, this is the real meat of the talk here, is sustainability in the curriculum and things that we've done. And my experience stems from a really important course we talk about, ethics and IT. I'll bring that up in a little more detail. A Green Thread initiative, sustainability energy education, which we offer through our department, and then a couple of undergraduate research projects that students have completed under my direction here in the very last 2 years. Okay, so I'm going to start today with this really ugly, and not that the producers of the slide didn't do a good job, but the facts here. All right, so if you want to take a quick minute and take a look at this slide, and this is my first introduction really to the green IT domain. We started talking about e-waste. I teach a course that has been part of our IT student curriculum for a lot of years. It's called Ethics and Information Technology. And in this particular course, we bring up a lot of the common topics a person would expect that you'd cover in an information technology ethics course. So we hit privacy rights, we hit intellectual property rights, we discuss accountability, globalization. And so this is really for, I think, for any person who is entering the IT world, they need to be aware of these issues and at least have had an opportunity to do a little bit of critical analysis on them. So we started introducing maybe 10 years ago or so just the whole e-waste concept. What's the problem with it here? Because at the time, there were very limited resources in our area for recycling things like computer monitors and TVs. So the thought was, well, what do you do with them? And, well, they're going into the landfill. 4 to 8 pounds of lead from your monitor goes into the landfill. Barium, beryllium, cadmium, mercury, all these things, just really ugly things. So this brought focus and discussion to the disposable nature of technology in our culture and some potential health concerns that would result from this. All right. One of the interesting details here, a 2011 report from the state of Florida estimated that CRT monitors and TVs were the largest contributor of lead in their municipal waste system. All right. So it's, even though I bring the slide up from 10 years ago, this is still a problem that we need to address in our society. Okay, so let's talk now about some of the efforts taking place in Missoula, Montana, and I put this graphic up here so you can identify where we are in the states. We're a very underpopulated state. We just hit 1 million people not too long ago, and we're also very large. And of course, the map is not to scale with Alaska, but we are the 4th largest state in the country and very similar in size to the state of California. So some of the organizations that we have in our local community, one that I'm really fond of is the Sustainable Business Council. And they're tasked with creating sustainability events, doing education in sustainability. They have a buy local program. They have a business recognition program. Sue Anderson does a great job there, and we're really lucky to have that in our community. One of the recent events that they have, they put on an annual lecture series, and they brought in a guest speaker from Microsoft, Stephen Lippman. And Stephen talked about, well, the title of his discussion was Technology Meets Sustainability, and Microsoft's effort to be more sustainable in their business practices. Some other events that are taking place in other organizations, we have a great organization in Missoula Motion that promotes alternative forms of transportation for sustainability, does a lot of promotions, education. Another really interesting program we have, the bus system. We're one of the smaller, probably one of the smaller cities in the country that has a very, very extensive bus system. So we're about 60,000 individuals in the city of Missoula, but we have a very large bus system. And that bus system has partnered with our Missoula Downtown Association for a free bus pass program. So that's really a great program to alleviate transportation and encourage alternative transportation for folks that work downtown, get them off the streets. Some other interesting kind of events that take place as a result of those partnerships. There's a Sunday Streets program, and that's actually coming up here very soon. And it happens twice a year, and what happens there is we try to promote non-motorized transportation. And so we close the streets to cars in our downtown community. At first that sounded like a really kind of unusual event to have, but it's been very successful, and it attracts a large number of individuals to our downtown core and puts everybody on foot. Gives you a totally different perspective of what a city can look like in a busy downtown area. The final thing I'll present from our local community is something that was just released here in November 2012. And the city of Missoula and Mayor John Engen have been working with a group to put together a conservation and climate action plan. And the plan calls for, by the year 2025, for the city of Missoula to be carbonly neutral, okay, which really means that through some conservation, reduction measures, and probably some purchase of some carbon offsets, the city government, their net greenhouse gas emissions will be zero. Now I think that again, it's a very insightful and powerful approach to sustainability. And these are all things that are taking place in our local community. Another really important initiative that took place, and this actually happened for our University of Montana, was our president signing on to something known as the President's Climate Commitment. All right, and what this meant is that leadership in American colleges and universities at the very highest level recognize climate change. And this recognition also meant that there is a need for action. So by signing on to this particular initiative, our university made a commitment to pursue climate neutrality as soon as possible. All right, so we were a charter member. Our president, George Dennison, at the time was one of the first to sign on to this. And this initiative has grown where at last check, we counted 669 colleges and universities across our country that have signed on to this climate commitment program. So what it creates, it requires action, and there'll be actionable items that have taken place. We're almost 6 years later now, but it requires some things such as greenhouse gas accounting, a climate action plan, and then measurable progress through that time. We've made a commitment that by the year 2020, our campus will be experiencing carbon neutrality as well. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit more about our climate action plan, which was a result from this. But let me look at some of the outcomes on our local campus as a result of this. So a number of advocacy work type of processes have been in place now for 6 years. One of them is the Use Your Power Wisely campaign, just to kind of make students and faculty aware, get the university community kind of on board with little things. Turn off the light switch, turn off your power strip to your PC, don't leave your laptop plugged in, a charger for it, those little things. But also brought some other things into the picture, such as the green thread. And the University of Montana Green Thread holds its focus is to try and help faculty integrate sustainability into their curriculum. So they're really focused on, again, action, where curriculum revisions are made by faculty members to introduce threads of sustainability into whatever the subject areas of the class. All right, so they have they have an annual workshop. They actually fund faculty members to come to the workshop and work on their curriculum, work on their syllabus, and try to integrate in a sustainability component to it. They also provide teaching resources, and they advertise. They have a nice little website here that advertises their impact. All right, and right now they're currently at around 2,000 students every year on an annual basis will enroll in a course that has been through the Green Thread process. So there's a sustainability focus on these 2,000 students at the University of Montana. Another interesting program coming out of our climate commitment is these revolving energy loans. And one of the examples I just put up here on the screen was one that's taken place at Online. So Online is our academic unit that hosts and supports all of our online and extramural programs. So I thought this was interesting because now you have for green IT, you have the telecommunication or telecommuting aspect of that's kind of an outcome, removing transportation needs through offering education from a distance, and now these folks are starting to implement a sustainable energy source. So that again contributes to the green IT focus taking place on our campus. All right, the last little bit I want to discuss about events at our campus is we have an office for sustainability, and recently we've hired a director. I think our director came on board 2009. And the Office for Sustainability is the body on campus that promotes sustainable committee advocacy work, greenhouse gas reporting, implementation of the climate action plan. And again, I referred to that earlier. We'll talk more detail about that. And all the tracking, the monitor, all those duties that come associated with it. So Sherry Peacock currently oversees that, does a really great job there. One of the very important duties, and not necessarily very glorious duties of that particular office, is to oversee all of our recycling programs. And so we have an e-waste recycling program on our campus for the entire University of Montana campus and its students. So a student can bring in a PC and they'll actually recycle it for them. And this is kind of all-encompassing, so it takes old television sets. You can think of some of the equipment that might be lying around a university. We have old VCRs. I think there's some old film strip machines. All that stuff goes through somebody who has a knowledge on the dangers, and packs on the pallets, sends it off to a certified recycling agency. That certification is really important, just to make sure that they are doing the right thing on their end as well. And most recently, this has been sponsored by Apple. So they've taken care of all this for us, and at no charge. So that's been a really, really great initiative as well. Another interesting development is that Sherry reports that we've had vendors starting to come to this particular body on campus now, and the discussion is ensuing here about paying us for our components that we're going to recycle, because the marketplace right now is driving a little bit of the demand for precious metals, where now there's actually an economic benefit to recycling those and put them back into the consumer product stream. Other important duty that comes out of this that ties into folks in IT is security, and data security in particular. So any machine that is recycled through this program, we make sure that the data is destroyed on any of the hard disks. And so that's, again, there's lots of documented stories in the annals of information technology of recycled machinery, and then there's still information on the hard drive, and then there's confidentiality concerns as a result of it from FERPA. That's our family, that's our legislation for any type of education related materials. Okay, so I'm going to continue to use my ethics class, because this is a great place to talk about green IT. So not too long ago, maybe just about the same time we were signing on to the Climate Action Plan, we started introducing a topic known as the triple bottom line into the course. And it really comes from, we have IT students in this course, but we also, it's a general education offering. So I see a multitude of folks that are from journalism programs or business programs, or just kind of all over the map. And this was a result of lots of discussions about IT, and really kind of a reflection from one particular business student. And if I could paraphrase that, he said, ethics, this is all nice and all, but we need to earn a living. It's about the bottom line. It's about making a profit here, and so we start out with some kind of loose discussion. Well, if you treat your customers right, then they want to come back, and then you have this business focus in where you have repeat customers, and that's one good reason to implement ethics. But we've kind of expanded that a little more, and my colleague Lisa Swallow, who's a sustainability advocate and accounting professor, started me on this track of the triple bottom line, and the concept of introducing sustainability as a business strategy. First, it recognizes that we are a capitalistic society, and we all need to make a living, but this has a focus where it actually measures success in 3 different areas. So it provides a background and framework for ethical decision making. But when we start to discuss the environmental or issues or social justice issues, it provides a new context. So we can talk about all 3 areas equally, that it's important to treat our customers well, otherwise we won't have them, or it's important to treat our planet well as well, because if we don't do a good job with that, we're not going to be in business very long. We're going to use up that resource. All right. So it was a very powerful concept to introduce in this class, and bring sustainability in, and the triple bottom line kind of brought like a win-win principle for all sides here. We want to do what's right for everybody. We also, another initiative taking place at our institution is we instituted sustainability into our curriculum by introducing a energy technology program. And we had some early visionaries here. Paul Williamson and one of our faculty members, Brian Kearns, started with an early offerings of courses in wind energy, solar energy, biofuels, kind of et cetera, these alternative fuel sources. And we're able to accrue some funding to put together an alternative energy demonstration site. So as you enter Missoula from the east in our Hellgate Canyon, you'll see there's a wind turbine there, and it's a result of this particular effort. So these classes were taking place, and our academic department felt like this was really a great program. So we use these efforts as a base for proposing a new program of academic study. And an actual degree. So we have a degree in energy technology, and it really has a sustainability focus on it. And we began that in 2009. And we had a grant and felt a little rushed in putting it all together, but we were able to get it together. And by August, the start of our academic year, we had 17 students. That program just grew like crazy, and by 2011 we had 75 students. So that was really that detailed the interest in this particular subject area. It's flattened to that's probably about the expected capacity that we're going to maintain now for the near future. So this particular program, we had a very green IT focus on this, where we made the entire program accessible online. In fact, all the courses a student was going to take in this program were offered online. And for students that were outside the area, we created a 3-week intensive summer practicum. So kind of a little different focus, or a little different delivery system for our education program, where these folks would just come on to our campus one time for their academic program. All right, so I have some just kind of show and tell pictures here. You see a demonstration site. These are some students here that are working on various projects. There's a solar car down the lower right-hand corner. There's they maintain our wind turbine, so they bring that down and service that. And on upper right-hand corner, these students came up with a tethered wind turbine concept, where they actually put a wind turbine up in the air using a hydrogen balloon, and then we're able to generate some current from that. All right. We also find with these students that there's actually a great knowledge transfer system, and again, linking that to sustainability. So on the left here, we have a student that actually developed a new product. He has a mobile solar power generator that he's attempting to market right now. On the upper right-hand corner, here's one of our graduates that's working in industry. He's seated actually on top of a wind turbine in Judith Gap, Montana. He's a wind tech now. And then in a kind of lower right-hand corner there, we have another student that just completed installation of the largest solar array in our state up in kind of north central Montana. So there's a real good knowledge transfer taking place. Here's another kind of a green thread to sustainable energy taking place. So these particular students took advantage of the revolving loan program. We're able to obtain that through a competitive process. And this is our faculty office building for this particular program. Interestingly, it was built by our carpentry students on our campus to address increases in our student enrollment and limited funding for infrastructure. So we were fortunate to have our own service box there for our electrical needs. And then these students just installed this solar PV demonstration project. It'll feed right into our electrical panel. And I'm looking at this as a future green IT project, where we start putting together some sort of measurement and monitoring system and streaming real-time data for this, and maybe using this energy that's coming out of this for some green IT related resource. Maybe it'll power all the computers in our faculty office. We have 9 faculty offices here. So I think it's a great program. This just went in as of like 2 or 3 months ago. My office is the window there on the right that you see, and pictured in the upper right hand corner is Brad Layton in front of our energy demonstration site, and he was hired recently here to oversee our sustainable energy program. Okay, so let's talk some more green IT here. We've mentioned a lot about the impact of ethics in IT, and a little bit of a green thread. It's nice to see the type of impact we have. I went through and calculated the number of sections and approximate student enrollment in there, and we're right around 120 students annually complete this course. So we have a nice impact here on providing some green education to our IT students, but also to a wealth of other curricular areas and majors and disciplines. Another development of green education taking place in our particular program is that we're really big on recognizing practical skills for our students. So as an example, our students are all required to complete A+ or Network Plus certification, and that's like a capstone activity for them. They complete that, and it recognizes that they have a specialized skill. It's a great resume builder. It's really a good credential to help them get started in the workforce. Well, CompTIA runs that. We're a CompTIA Academy, and recently CompTIA started offering another program, and it's called the Green IT Certification Program. We've used that as a basis for a lot of our work in green IT, and we haven't had I went and took the test, and just to kind of see what it would be like for students. It seemed very applicable to incorporate in our program of study. And so we have we use this as kind of the base for all of our green IT projects. And I haven't had any students go take the exam yet, but I think that's coming up in a not too distant future here. And then the other kind of green IT education, which we started just very recently, 2 years ago, is some undergraduate research. And undergraduate research is a pretty fairly recent movement in higher education, but we've seen very limited participation by two-year colleges. And so it's one of the unique organization attributes of having our two-year college embedded inside a four-year research institution is that there is that culture of research. And so we look to try and take advantage of that. And we of course, will embrace the whole scientific approach of, motivation, problem, approach, method, outcomes, all those things that the scientists embrace. We try and do the same thing with our students when we do a green IT related project. So some other so here's kind of the different project domains that come out of CompTIA, and this will be the basis for our undergraduate research projects. All right, and really the three main domains that we look at is green computing, which is virtualization, and really a more common term that I think we hear for this from a green perspective or a sustainable perspective is consolidation, where we're taking resources and we're combining them because the technology is definitely there to do so, and we've done a project like that. Telecommuting is another big one with VPNs, online learning, even what we're doing today, where we're actually doing an entire online conference. Really unique idea, but it's really foundational in the green IT domain. We also look at efficiency and sustainable energy. So I talked about our sustainable energy program. We had another study we did that looked at efficiency in variable power states of electronic devices. And then last one, you've seen some examples of this, but with e-waste, we try and recycle, reuse, disposal, appropriate disposal, really focus on a cradle-to-grave philosophy. So just assuming that we continue to have a limited lifespan for all of our electronics program, that there's some wise design that's implemented in it. And programs like EPEAT are foundational in helping producers of these electronic and consumer products have a guideline for that, and actually have some sort of recognition that they are following that. We also try and incorporate the disposal into the product cost, talk about considering repurposing, and that really ugly slide I started this presentation for is influential as you start discussing this in greater detail with students. Another important kind of outcome as we start to do research with this is to have kind of a governing document, and we with all our research projects, we've based it on our climate action plan that we talked about a little earlier in the presentation here. So this is the comprehensive document that outlines all of our strategies for achieving carbon neutrality by the year 2020. And inclusive in this is an energy-wise IT policy. So when we start these projects, we try and take a look at this and how can we help the cause. And so this has been a base document for all of our studies. And as we look through this is, by the way, this is all the information that's in there right now, and this particular committee is probably needs a little more help with it because it's an underdeveloped area of the document. So as we start doing these projects, we hope that there's some universal appeal to the entire campus, and it will help us as we start to move forward with our climate action plan. So the one that we're focusing on here in our first study was power management software, which is detailed here, and we'll look at that study here in just a little bit. All right, bouncing back here, undergraduate research. So we there's a lot of benefits to that, and I'm going to talk about those in detail here. But let me tell you a little bit of a story here, and maybe my motivation. So I was at a GIS and ESRI conference down in San Diego several years ago, and I ran into a colleague, professor at Baltimore Community College, and they had a great poster session there, and I started looking at the work and talking with it was Scott Jeffries, talking to Scott a little bit about what his students were doing, and he was able to get all of his students to do a research poster, and they were all using GIS technologies. Very interesting poster session where students were trying to make connections that hadn't been made before. So for instance, they were using GIS software to correlate data between public transportation in their local area and the socioeconomic status of particular neighborhoods. So are the buses getting to the people that don't have any other form of transportation? Another one looked at the origins of some historic major catastrophes and tried to map with that their proximity to emergency services. In other words, if they had had emergency services a little closer, would a catastrophe have been avoided? And then the other one was kind of disturbing, but it's interesting. So I'll present it here. Was somebody had taken and mapped. We in our country have a sex offenders website where if a person's a convicted sex offender, they always have to let their area of residence be known, and so there's a database of that, and they map that with the proximity of these individuals to our public school system. Okay, so again, this was all research being done, and it was being done at a 2-year college. So it's very, very inspirational to see these projects, and then these students actually did a public display at a very major conference, a lot of miles away from their homes in Baltimore. All right. So there's also there's a National Council on Undergraduate Research, and they create a great publication that's called Undergraduate Research at Community Colleges that outlines several case studies. So as we're kind of digging through all these different details here, green IT appeared to be a very appropriate topic because that was we had students with that expertise in that area. And then we also, it was very, when presented to students, when we discussed it, they were passionate about it. So it was a very good motivator as well. And we also had resources at the University of Montana, because remember, we're embedded inside the big research institution. So our Davidson Honors College offers competitive scholarships, and they have an annual conference so that our students can do a public display of their work. All right. So we thought we'd take a jab at this. All right, so I found an interested student. We worked together. We submitted we created an abstract. We submitted an application, and we were a little surprised, but very happily surprised that we were funded. And so he ended up getting a scholarship for the next semester, and we got a little bit of a small stipend for purchasing some equipment. All right. Here's another graphic here I have of undergraduate research, and this was at the undergraduate research conference held on campus 2 years ago. And one of the outcomes here that I think is very beneficial for students is a public display and a presentation of their work. So it's just a nice step in the students' academic journey, and it also at the same time brings some recognition and focus to what we felt is a very important issue. So we've done 2 undergraduate research projects, and the first one was entitled Energy Usage Study of Student Computing Facilities at the University of Montana. That was completed in 2011. I'm going to present that next. And then the second one we did was called Sustainable Computing Through Desktop Virtualization. All right, so both these presentations won local campus awards. In other words, they went into this competition, and both students won the best oral presentation in the physical sciences division. The other one won the best poster presentation in that same division. And then both of them received funding, which is really great. To me, that means they had good projects and they did a good job with them, and I think a lot of that comes from their motivation to pursue this. So let's talk about the first project here, and we'll start with our motivation in completing this. So our EPA has an Energy Star website and an Energy Star rating system for all of our appliances, including computing appliances such as monitors. All right, so they have this great website. We kind of use this as a motivator for us. They have a whole kind of a green IT focus there. You can see from their website they have 6 ways to reduce IT energy costs. But what we found really interesting here was an article they had from GlaxoSmithKline, which is a national, probably international pharmaceutical company. They do have an operation not too far away from our town of Missoula. A lab is down in our Bitterroot Valley. But we started reading through this article, and I encourage you to take a look at it, that they were able to use software settings and variable power states in their PCs and reported an enormous savings. Okay, and again, go back to that triple bottom line. So this is a great initiative for the planet, for people, and then there's the business aspect of it. So they found huge savings in this. Almost $1 million is what they reported back. So we took that idea as a motivation for us, and we came up with a hypothesis in our approach here. So by implementing, here's what we figured. In a college schedule, we have a 10-minute transition time when one class ends and the next class starts. And so our hypothesis was, well, if we were to put all those computers into, and we looked at just our academic computing labs, if we were to put all those computers into a low power state for those 10 minutes, well, that would save us approximately 20%. And we would be able to do that without any degradation in performance. So there was our hypothesis. We were very selective about what we chose. So we chose academic computing because each computer lab has a routine schedule, and it doesn't really change from week to week. So this helped us with eliminating maybe some variables in data collection. We also found that computer labs all have the same hardware, which again was really helpful as we start doing a study to have all of our different systems. All of our subjects were the same. And then we also found that we can get in and out of computer labs much easier than getting in and out of somebody's office. So accessibility was there for us, so it made it very, very easy for us to collect our data for this. So our method here, we actually came up with 3 different power schemes. And we had a no power savings scheme where we just turned off any power management software at all. So there'd be no variable power states in this, and this is absolutely the worst thing we could do, but we wanted to compare that with what was on the systems before we started this project. So what was the default settings? Maybe they came from the factory, maybe they came from our IT folks. And what we found with those is that all the machines were set to go into a system standby state, and I'll call it a sleep mode. There's different terminology, standby, hibernate, sleep mode, and there's really a little variance in definitions I've found with those. But what we were going to do with these is we were going to power off the monitor, power off the hard drive, and we call that sleep mode. And so our default scheme went into sleep mode after 240 minutes. We created our added power savings scheme, and so when a user was logged on, it would go into sleep mode after 10 minutes of inactivity. If the user logged off, it would wait 1 minute and then go into sleep mode. Okay, so we were able to achieve that. We worked with a number of different technologies, and we're all a Windows shop here, so pretty straightforward. But Windows really does have some good utilities for this. We utilized the Windows GPO, their local group policy objects. We were able to apply that to all of our workstations. We also Windows has a built-in command interpreter utility called Power CFG. And you can see in the lower left-hand corner there's part of the script that we ran. I think this is actually set up as a batch file that we could actually tell it in a script that was applied using our GPO, that when this event takes place, when somebody logs off, here's the power configuration that we want to use. All right. So that took a little research on the student, but it was, again, within the student's level of expertise. The other thing we used, and we started out with a, excuse me, we started out with a very novel approach where we're going to have a Brultec energy monitoring device attached out at our power distribution box out by the circuit breaker. We hired an electrician, installed all that. At the time we were doing this, Google still had their power meter software. The student was going to stream the power from the Brultec device to the power meter software. We'd have real-time statistics that we could set up a little demonstration site as well. But 2 things happened. One, we're an old building, and we spent an enormous amount of money and time with an electrician to try and just map out where which outlets went to which particular circuit breaker. And in an older building, we weren't able to track down all the outlets that the breaker went. So we started getting these really odd, once our academic session started, we started getting these really odd readings. So they were all over the map as far as comparing that. with we picked up a $20 or $25 kilowatt device, which measures electrical consumption, and we ended up finding that the two varied, and we felt our data was much more reliable from the kilowatt. So that's what we used. It was a very inexpensive solution, and kind of got us out of a bad place. The other event that happened, of course, is Google discontinued their power meter product and support, which was a little disappointing to see. Okay, so our results. So we have our three different settings here. In blue, you'll see where we don't have any power savings, and you can see that one's kind of all over the map. And in red, we have our default power settings, and then of course in green, you'll see here is the power scheme we devised on our own here. And of course, as you might expect, the added power savings scheme that we used was very successful, and it curbed the energy appetite of our systems. What I thought was some other residual kind of outcomes that we hadn't expected. If you look here on Wednesday, you can see there's a real outlier in our data here. We have a point that's almost at 30 kilowatt hours used. And versus at that same time, this is a Wednesday, our added power savings power scheme was only at 14 kilowatt hours. And we tracked that. So after we received the data, we start doing a little bit of detective work, and we tracked down that particular night somebody had forgot to shut down the machines in the lab. Okay, that happens. He just went out the door and forgot to turn off the power switch there. So look at how that flattened that graph down on the bottom though. So by implementing these low power states, we were actually able to really, it was negligible. You forgot to turn off the computers. Well, big deal. They kind of turned themselves off. So that was an interesting outcome of that. And then we went ahead and we mapped it across the entire lab and came up with kind of an answer to our hypothesis. So we had found that we expected about 20% savings here, and our reduction was actually 37%. And that was really inspiring for us too. So at the conclusion of the study, we went through and there was no implementation after this, but at this point we were just still gathering facts and data, and so we tried to put together a carbon footprint for just our academic computing labs, and only on our campus, because we're just one unit of a number of campuses, and we were very conservative in this too. So we calculate the 6 different computer labs we have. We have mounted to about 124 desktop computers, approximately 15.5 hours of daily service in a normal operating day, and it's a 5-day work week, Monday to Friday. These labs are closed over the weekend. And we calculated a 30-week work year. So we figured each semester is 15 weeks, and we didn't take in the summer session. We didn't, no other data there, because I wanted to be pretty conservative when we came up with this estimate. So we figured out that we have 174 approximately kilowatt hours daily in our current footprint. And we went ahead and calculated a carbon footprint out of that, and that on an annual basis, just with those simplifications, amounted to 18 metric tons of carbon is our current footprint for this, which is an underestimate, and it was a little bit of a surprise to all of us. All right. So anyway, some good information came out of that particular presentation, and we moved on to our next research project, which involved consolidation. All right, we want to investigate energy savings created through desktop consolidation. So our motivation is we thought virtualization allows us to access the desktop from any device. And really our vision as we were talking this project through was, are we at some point in the near future going to get rid of our desktop computers completely? And when we come into our office, are we going to have an interface sitting at our desk of a monitor, our keyboard, our mouse, and we pull out our cell phone, and we take our cell phone, we connect it with the HDMI connection on there. We have wireless Bluetooth for our monitor and our wireless Bluetooth for our keyboard and our mouse, and then we have a wireless connection to our network, and then we access our remote desktop for our workplace. So that was kind of the long-sided talk about what we settled in on though was that we can lower the carbon footprint, but we're going to be in a mixed operating system environment of some kind. We're going to have Windows, Linux, and if we're looking at things like smartphones, we'll have a Droid. We also needed to look at VPN access. That was going to be important. And then we also we didn't want to sacrifice performance in the user experience just to save energy, because I didn't think that was a very sustainable aspect of the project. So we looked at, we are working with the knowledge worker here, and how do we craft a energy smart solution for them, but still they get the rich experience that they expect. All right, so here's our approach. We came up with 3 different categories of knowledge workers. We first had just some public kiosks that are frequent all over campuses. And these are just general information kiosks where a student might be looking at the online catalog. They might be sitting in front of our new student services or financial aid. And they typically get on a web browser. They look for information. They might register for a class. And then they walk away from it. Maybe a little bit of printing attached with that as well. Our second group of knowledge workers were just general staff, and these folks serve as administrative associates and secretaries, and generally really need office productivity software, email, and a web browser. Those are usually the most utilized applications they have. And then our third group was faculty members, and we chose faculty members whose general duties involve teaching. So they had a general software suite that they needed that we were able to support. And then the other kind of added interesting element was they both wanted VPN access. They wanted to access the university network from afar. And so for one faculty member, we actually expanded their access because all of a sudden they didn't have a desktop, a virtual desktop. So now their virtual desktop could reach their device from home as well. So our method here, and I put a little snippet in here as far as what they're working with. Basically, they're going to measure the carbon footprint of the information worker using a standard desktop. And then 2 of the things that we implemented, one was a repurposed machine that we grabbed out of recycling. And so we got a legacy machine, and they're able to access a modern desktop using virtualization. And then our other measurement took place with a thin client. All right. And so we measured the energy or electricity consumption from these various devices, and our standard PC depend upon whether they were the ones that were currently sitting on the person's desktop or a repurposed one. They had a very variable footprint of somewhere between 220 and 365 watts. What we found is that we purchased some very inexpensive thin clients, and part of it is we were working with a limited budget, and they were rated online around 35 watts. We actually plugged them in and put the kilowatt to them. We found they drew about 6 watts of electricity, which we were just ecstatic about. We thought that was really great. And then we also we had to set up and calculate in our numbers the cost of virtualization. So we had a kind of a dated server a little bit, and we distributed the load as following. We just have four virtual desktops assigned to this one server, which I think with modern equipment we probably have much more elaborate, maybe 10 to 15, 20 virtual desktops per individualized server. Okay, so pretty modest consolidation rate there. Just kind of give you a brief look at the devices we're looking at. On the left-hand side, you'll see a repurposed computer. We started on a project where we're looking if we could lower the energy draw of that particular device, removing some components such as the hard drive, and then doing something with the power supply. That was the nut we weren't able to crack, that the power supply was constant. We couldn't find any way without going in and actually taking apart the power supply to lower the energy consumption there. And then you can see the screen just below that, it's running a Linux operating system, but it's connecting to a Microsoft virtual desktop. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see the thin client, and just a little, I don't know, I think we paid $150 or $200 for this from HP. And it's very compact, and it had its own Linux client, which allowed us to attach using an RDP client to our virtual desktop. All right. Actually, that worked better than our legacy machine. We're very, very happy with the performance of that. So here are results of our study, and across the bottom on the x-axis you can see our various users You can see a faculty, 2 staff, and then a couple kiosks. And then on you see the kind of some spikes in the data here, and a couple things that we thought were of interest. On the blue line, if you take a look at faculty member number 1, here's a faculty member that had never turned off his computer. And the reason why is that he was always accessing his virtual desktop. Now, moving his virtual desktop, consolidating with other virtual desktops, just really knocked down his energy consumption. We had staff member number 2 here who got busy and didn't turn on her computer. And so we found we had a real peak or a real drop in that data on staff member number 2. So we have some fluctuations in data, but overall it seemed to promote some good conclusions here. We did complete a user survey from the knowledge worker, and everybody seemed to be pretty happy with it. I think we maybe need to dig down in that a little more. And really our user pool, I would like to see it expanded. So that's for another project at some point here. But we look at it varied from faculty member to faculty member. One faculty member who never turned off his computer, well, we found a 75% change in or savings in the carbon footprint. That's really big, huh? The other faculty member, it was a little more minimal, but still almost 20% there. And then you can look across the various staff, and again, staff too is really distorted because I don't think the data was properly configured. The kiosks seem to vary depending upon their usage. One was used a little bit more than the other, so they had a very high savings again. But both of them, show that there was considerable savings there. Okay, so I just summarize here. There's a lot of really great programs taking place in our local community and our local university in implementing sustainability, both as a community effort, but also as a thread in our curriculum. And our university here, we are using this as kind of my template for the green IT project domain. So we take a look at what we're doing with our curriculum in overall and the impact we can have our students in classes such as our ethics and IT course. But we also look at other programs that we have in our department, such as energy technology and promoting sustainable energy, online coursework and telecommuting. And then we hope to come up with a couple more of these undergraduate related research programs for students to work on. So I'd like to thank you for attending this presentation today, and thank you goes out to the Foundation for IT Sustainability for putting together this event. I'm informed that there will be a live question and answer session following the presentation, so please consider joining me with some questions and comments. Love to hear from you. And again, thank you for taking the time to attend this presentation.